Hello and welcome to another Ready to Rise session. In this session today I'm going to be focusing on exercises to improve mobility of your spine. I won't go into a huge amount of detail as to why that's important because you probably know, but put simply, the more mobile and symmetrical that mobility is through your spine, the easier it is going to be for your horse to move through its spine as well. This is particularly important when you're thinking of things like lateral work, where you want to have symmetrical movement for your horse on both reins. So if you're symmetrical in your movement, the chances are your horse is going to be symmetrical too. We're going to do 4 exercises. The first is called the Cobra, and you need to lie on your front. You don't need to have a headrest for this one, and you're going to start off with your arms out to the side, elbows bent to 90 degrees. I will demonstrate this movement first of all and then talk you through. So you're starting with your nose resting just lightly onto your mat, and then you scoop forwards as if you're forming the bottom of a J shape, and then take your nose straight up in front until you're looking straight ahead. Then you come straight back down and scoop at the bottom like a J again until your nose is resting lightly onto your mat. As you do that movement, you go up until you feel your elbows are nearly coming away from the floor, and that's when you start to come back down again. This exercise mobilises particularly your thoracic spine, so that's this middle part of your back. And you might well see that I'm pretty stiff in that part of my spine, and I probably don't get as much movement as I should. So this is probably an exercise that I should be doing a lot more of. If you find that version a little bit easy, you can straighten your elbows a little way, and as you come up into the lift, you can go up until you feel your hands nearly come off the floor. Whichever exercise you do though, what you want to avoid is just basically doing a sort of semi-press up and hinging through your low back. The aim is to mobilise as much of your back as you possibly can. The next exercise, you need to turn onto your side. Bend your knees to wherever feels comfortable. I'm not going to use a head block for this, but you can do if you want to. And it's called the open arms. If you do use a headrest, have your head at the front of it. Top hand out in front of you. Mouse hole, you don't need to worry about for this exercise because you're going to be moving through your whole spine. Take your top hand up and then out behind you as far as you can. And I have to look at you so you can hear me, but you want to be turning so that you follow your hand with your eyes the whole way through the movement. Then bring your arm back over and down in front of you. As you do the movement, as well as following your hand with your eyes, you want to make sure that your knees are glued together and glued to your mat. And if you do that, you will make sure that you're anchoring your pelvis and therefore getting a greater deal of movement through the whole of your spine. This is a really typical exercise that improves very quickly after you've done a few repetitions. So it's a really nice one to do if you want to see quick results. The next exercise, if you turn onto your back, and we're going to do an exercise called the shoulder bridge. There is a separate session based purely on this exercise if you want to go into more details. So we'll just do it quite simply for this session. You need to have your hands resting on the mat beside you, knees bent, feet and knees hip width apart, resting into your basic neutral pelvis position, so flattish across your tummy, probably a little gap underneath your back. Pelvic floor onto floor 3, and then flatten your low back into the mat so you make an imprint of your spine onto the mat. Then gently peel your pelvis off the mat and lift on up until you are into what we call the shoulder bridge position. So shoulders, hips and knees in a fairly straight line. Check your pelvic floor is still working when you're at the top, and then as best as you can you want to come back down one vertebrae at a time until you lift away from that imprint position and go back to your neutral flat tummy. So it's pelvic floor, imprint, lift the pelvis and lift each vertebrae one at a time until you get to the top of your bridge, and then lay each vertebrae back down one at a time. So this is almost like the reverse of the cobra that you did at the beginning. If you find it really difficult to do that last bit, so laying your pelvis back down onto the mat, which to be honest an awful lot of people find really hard without practice, you can spend a great deal of time very productively just working on the start and the finish of that movement until you can effectively imprint and lift, imprint and back down, and that way then you'll really know that you've got good segmental control of your low back. So now if you turn onto your other side and have a go at doing the open arms in this position. So knees bent to wherever's comfortable. Don't worry about the mouse hole. Top arm out in front, and then it's taking the top hand up and out behind. Remember, you want to turn so that your hand is always in sight. And then over back in front of you. And as you do that turn, you're keeping your knees glued together and glued to your mat so that you anchor your pelvis and make sure you maximise the movement through the whole of your spine. And this is a really good one for you to see if you are more mobile in one direction or another, because you should be able to see if your arm and hand go more easily in one direction. And if you are stiffer in one direction, then obviously that's an exercise that you need to work on, and that's a really easy one to see those differences between left and right. We're going to finish off with an exercise that is quite simply called rotations, and it's quite a boring exercise to do, but I think it's a really helpful one because it focuses on the pressure that you feel through your seat bones. If you find it difficult to get into this cross-legged position, then sit on a solid block so thick, and it just helps to open up the hip angle and make this position a little bit easier to do. For your arms, just pop them across your chest, and once you're in that position, all you need to think about is your seat bones. And to start off with, you just want to make sure that you've got equal pressure through both of your seat bones. Once you're happy with that, all you need to do is turn your shoulders from side to side, and as you turn, make sure that that pressure through your seat bones stays equal left and right. And then you can think about the quality of the turning movement as well. So making sure that you're not dropping down as you lead with each shoulder. And this is directly transferable to doing any lateral work with your horse. What you're trying to avoid is collapsing onto one seat bone or another. And then a real test is if you can do that with your eyes closed. So still trying to have that feeling of equal pressure through your seat bones and symmetrical shoulders. You also, like with the open arm exercise, want to make sure that you're going symmetrically both directions. And I quite like as a little challenge with this to swap arms and legs around to the opposite that feels natural for your body, because we all have a way we like to fold our arms and legs that's natural to us, and swap and see if you can do the same thing in your opposite folded position. So still keeping that equal seat bone pressure. For me, this is much harder this way because my legs don't feel natural. But if you can keep that equal pressure no matter what is happening through the rest of your body, then that's a good sign that you've got really good awareness of your seat bones, and that's going to transfer into having good awareness of your seat position and seat control in the horse. So there you are, 4 really simple exercises that will help in various different ways to mobilise your spine and improve your control segmentally, that is, through each of the layers of your spine. Nice simple ones for you to do, but they're all really effective, and even if you don't have time to do all of them, pick one to do perhaps every morning or every evening and see if it makes a difference to you. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you've learnt something today, and we'll see you again soon.